Autism is essentially a set of genes that affects many aspects of life, including development, socializing, and sensory processing. Autistic traits are not uniform, meaning there are many traits that autistic people may or may not have, and to varying degrees. The way to tell if someone is autistic or not is to see if they have several autistic traits across many areas, and to see if autism appears in other family members. Here are 6 signs that Alexander Scriabin was on the autism spectrum. Sign 1. Development. In most autistics, certain abilities develop earlier than neurotypicals, while other abilities are delayed. What you see in many autistic composers, most famously Mozart, is being a child prodigy, or being exceptionally good at music at a young age. Scriabin was like this. You know Scriabin's famous Opus 2 Etude in C-sharp minor? He wrote that when he was only 16 years old. It's a really mature-sounding piece that's brilliant for a 16-year-old to create. He also was described as precocious and used to build pianos as a child because he was fascinated by how they worked. Sign 2. Socializing. Here's a quote from Scriabin's Wikipedia page. Lyubov portrays Scriabin as very shy and unsociable with his peers, but appreciative of adult attention. According to one anecdote, Scriabin tried to conduct an orchestra composed of local children, an attempt that ended in frustration and tears. It also says that Scriabin was the smallest and weakest among all the boys and sometimes teased due to his stature. Being shy, unsocial, getting along with adults, and being teased by peers all sound like the social life of an autistic child. He was also known to have pronounced feminine personality characteristics, which isn't uncommon for male autistics. Sign 3. Sensory processing. I mentioned in my 1K Q&A video that Scriabin had synesthesia. Synesthesia is when people see colors that they associate with particular pitches when they hear music. While not every synesthete is autistic, one study shows synesthesia to be about 3 times more prevalent in autistics. When you explore Scriabin's atonality, you can tell that he had a very sophisticated ear that could systematically pioneer novel harmony. It seems that Scriabin had an uncommon way of processing sound that influenced his music. Sign 4. Obsessions. I already mentioned that Scriabin was obsessed with pianos, and of course his love of music is a common obsession for autistics. Scriabin was particularly obsessed with Chopin's music. One trait some autistics have is hypersexuality. Scriabin indeed was very sexual, living a promiscuous life, and of course wrote the Poem of Ecstasy, which was originally named the Poem of Orgasm. The last deep interest of Scriabin's to mention that is dear to many autistics is philosophy. Some of the most influential philosophers were autistic, and Scriabin was particularly interested in Friedrich Nietzsche's philosophy, who was also most likely autistic. Scriabin met with local philosophy groups and wrote his own philosophical ideas in his journal. Sign 5. Delusions of grandeur. Here I'm referring to 2 autistic traits that often influence each other, narcissism and the proclivity to mistaken fantasy with reality. Scriabin was famous for saying, "I am God." He thought he was the second coming of Christ because he was born on Christmas Day. He supposedly told people he could walk on water, but when asked to prove it, he of course fell in the water. He believed in theosophy, which involves supernatural spirits. He supposedly wouldn't play evil-themed pieces like Sonata 6 and 9 because he thought he was actually invoking evil spirits. Scriabin having delusions of grandeur shouldn't discount his legacy, as many brilliant autistics had an irrational side, like Isaac Newton. While Newton was a genius that made discoveries about the natural world, he also spent more of his time working on alchemy than physics. Sign 6. Family. Since the scientific consensus leans towards autism being caused by genetics, let's take a look at Scriabin's family to see if any of them fit the bill. Scriabin's father was in the military, coming from a family of soldiers. Some autistics like the structure of the military, but it's not a very clear sign of autism. His mother, however, was a concert pianist, which is where he might have gotten his musical autism genes from. While we don't know enough about Scriabin's parents to really tell if they're autistic, it would seem as though at least one of Scriabin's children, Julian Scriabin, was autistic. How is this for a child prodigy? He wrote several complex atonal piano compositions before his death at age 11. Unfortunately, he died the most common way that young autistic children die, by drowning. The fact that Alexander Scriabin's child also exhibited signs of autism is yet another sign that he was autistic. Discourse around autism often focuses on the downsides, but in fact many genius innovators throughout history have been on the autism spectrum. Autistics are known for thinking outside the box, and this led Scriabin to pioneer an entirely novel approach to harmony. Today he would have been considered to have Asperger's, or level 1 autism spectrum disorder, and to be a musical savant. Myself and many others consider Alexander Scriabin to be a genius. Thank you all for watching. Please join the Discord, like, comment, subscribe, and consider donating.